But the most important thing is, have you executed? It's good if I execute. I mean, great for me, great for my family, great for the people around me, great for the people that, have direct access to me and they're like, Troy, what are you looking at today? But are you executing, right? With all the information, with all the noise, with all the chatter, with all the people in it, are you focusing and are you executing? And the reason I ask that is because if everybody in here right now is watching this, then you're a part of EYLU. And on June 4th, this happened. It was a letter for me. Good morning, earners. Here is what I'm keeping my eyes on today. A company I like in the cybersecurity sector and have been invested in, Crowd, which is the ticker for CrowdStrike. Now, you might have noticed this, and some people are starting to learn my cadence. On Market Mondays, the week before, I told you, I'm looking at CrowdStrike. I hear everybody's talking about cybersecurity. Who's leading that space? I said, there's going to be something important that happens this week, right? And this is prior to June 4th. I said, Zscaler is going to be reporting their earnings. And I'm watching that closely because I want to see if they beat their earnings, because I want to see how the sector is doing. I know how Palo Alto is doing. We saw Fortinet, but I know I'm invested in Crowd. So I'm like, they've had a pullback. I wonder what this is going to look like when they actually report. And so I did the research. So I put it in here. They report earnings after the bell today. The stock has had a nice pullback, but nearly all analysts have kept their price targets in the 390 to 400 range. That morning, CrowdStrike was trading at $307. 3 days prior, it was trading at $343. I could not believe it. The company that I'm looking at is now depreciating at a value that makes sense for me. It is now hitting all my metrics. I'm going to show you what it looks like in just a sec, right? Analysts are keeping it in 390 to 400. It's at 307. Check. Expectations point to a double-digit growth and an increase to their operating cash flow. I like to hear that, right? If some of the it hit some of my key points on an option call, it could drop further today based on the pre-market conditions. So at the time it was at 307, but pre-market is saying it was opening up at 305, even better. So I attached some research tools that I'm using today. So when you go inside the community, you'll see some of the tools. But if you didn't go, here are some of them anyway. So first thing I look at is the chart. And so if you look closer to the right side of the chart, where you see this black line is pointing, you see a depreciation, right? It starts to turn purple and has a downturn. That is June 4th, right? And then you can see it says earnings on June 4th after the close. And so I'm like, damn, it got down to 305. Okay, well, I'm looking at this company and I'm trying to get into a point that makes sense. These contracts are pretty expensive, but if it pulls back to a certain number, I think we can do something here. So first thing I look is the chart. Next thing I go is to, all right, well, let me look at the option. And so I knew it was at 340 on Friday or on Thursday. So could I get back to 340? Well, based on everything I saw, I'm like, there's no reason why this is pulling back. Zscaler reported and it looked pretty decent. There's no reason why CrowdStrike is pulling back unless people are trying to pull the rug on us, where people are taking profit, and they want to get. Sometimes there's I wouldn't say market manipulation, but institutional investors will say we want to get it at a certain price, and so you start to see a sell-off. And once people start seeing sell-offs, then they sell. And so it gets down to 305. This is the actual equities movement, and so you can see it was up at 353, and by the time we get to June 4th in the morning, it's down at 307. Okay, cool, like that. Check. Now this is the options price, and so you can see it was at $37.50. So that's $3,750 per contract, right? I'm like, damn, 3,700 is tough. I like to buy mines in 5s or 10s, so I need that number to come all the way down. And what does it do? It comes all the way down, right? It got down to under 1,700. Now, most people are going to say, well, damn, 1,700 is a lot. Well, that's fine. It's depending on your strategy and your threshold, right? But maybe you buy one contract at 1,700, right? Because I'm watching this. This now hits the threshold. Did it go under 40%? Yeah. If it was at 38 and it got down to 19, that's 50%. Right. So I'm like, oh, we're well under 50%. I like that. Now, here was my final metric. I'm like, oh, wait. I'm using SMIs.com because I want to see going into earnings how they perform for each quarter. And so you can see it has fiscal quarter 1, 2023, fiscal quarter 2, 2023. So it shows you the year prior, and then it shows you what is done for the present year and where we're going to 20. So they're in fiscal quarter 2025. So I put my SMIs number in. I think it's going to go, over 908. Great. Wall Street thinks it's going to go to 904, and they were talking about in terms of revenue, right? This is not like these are revenue numbers. So look at this gap, though. This is what really piqued my interest. I said in Q4 of 2024, Wall Street anticipated it to do 893.13. You can see that number, but what it actually did was 845. And I start to see the gap up is it's so drastic, right? It's a big gap there. So I'm like, wait, this revenue is going to come in pretty high, right? So this is why I'm putting it. I think the revenue is going to come in pretty high. Analysts, everybody's saying the number's going to come in high. I'm thinking to myself, well, the revenue comes in high. Well, this is we don't know what they're spending, right? So I start looking at the history of what they're spending. I'm looking at the CapEx, right? I'm looking at the profit margins. I'm like, still teetering, but I like this number too much. I execute. I'm like, all right, open the bell. I'm going to do it. Perfect. Here's the results. So on June 4th, right? That was 9 days ago. In 9 days, with that information that was inside of the community, if I would have bought one contract, right? And so people are like, wait, Troy, you bought two? Yeah, I did. Actually, what I did was I bought it. So this call that I showed you here was the 340 call. I bought this twice. I actually bought it, I sold it, and then I went down and bought the 330 with the money that I made from the 340, and then bought the 340 again. So you see the difference in percentages there, right? That 340 would be higher because I bought that first. But again, I copped over. I spun the block. And now I'm up 254% on the 330, and I'm up 108% on the 340. And that's of today. That's not like I did this 3 years ago. I didn't do this 2 years ago. I showed you in the community on June 4th. This is what I'm looking at. Here's why I'm looking at it. But the question is, did you execute? Right? And so it goes back to, are you a disciplined investor?